Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com, this is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Surprise, surprise. We Canadians, we're getting just a little bit ticked off at the way this country is heading. And we aren't too crazy about the way Justin Trudeau is leading us either. A just released Angus poll indicates 52% of Canadians are pessimistic about the future of the country. In Ontario, by the way, that percentage is 54%. 59% of us disapprove of Trudeau's performance. Even more revealing, perhaps, the number of people who say Canada is heading in the right direction is down to only 35%. Interestingly enough, Pierre Poilievre has the highest ratings among the Conservative candidates. He has the support of 26% of Canadians compared to Jean Charest at 21%. Let me ask you this. Do any of these figures surprise you? I must tell you that the only thing that I'm surprised at is that only 52% of us are pessimistic about the direction Canada is taking. I would have thought the figure would be a bit higher than that. But you know, when you stop and think about it, we Canadians are a resilient, rather optimistic lot for the most part. I mean, we've overcome incredible hardships in the past over the years to develop this into one of the finest countries in the world. And I think despite attempts by the leftists to make us feel guilty about our history and ourselves, I think most of us deep down still believe that we'll be able to pull out of these dark days and we'll be okay. But what do you think? Are you pessimistic about the direction we are taking? In your opinion, what are you worried about the most? What disturbs you the most? What are you most pessimistic about? And what concerns you about the way things are going? I have to tell you that there are many things that, and I go through it almost every day on this program, but one of the things that I've never really talked about but really disturbs me is the manner in which increasingly these days, the manner in which the leftists are trying to make us feel guilty about our country. They keep pounding away about the residential school system, to which I say enough is enough. Get fresh water onto the reserves, and for heaven's sakes, let's move on. Let's get on with life, including natives. The Pope has apologized over there. The Pope's going to come here and apologize. Stephen Harper apologized. Justin Trudeau has apologized. Time to move on, I say. And while we're at it, let me ask you this. Talking about this whole move to denigrate Canada, to make us feel guilty. And by the way, ask if you have teenagers in school, ask them what they're learning in history. It's almost all about residential school. They just keep pounding away about what horrible people we were, what a terrible thing we did. Well, come on, time to move on. They are so ashamed of Canada in Winnipeg. Believe it or not, they're not calling it Canada Day anymore. They're too ashamed to even use the name. In Winnipeg, it's being called New Day.
What?
Can you imagine? New Day. This is just one more step in this ongoing attempt by the bloody leftists to make us feel guilty. Do you agree with me? It's time to stop browbeating ourselves over one small chapter in our history, events over which none of us had any control. Time instead to celebrate our proud history. And damn it all, we have a very proud history here, including, by the way, and I just don't understand why more people don't realize this. Folks, we have a proud history in Canada of providing safe haven for beleaguered people. This was the end of the Underground Railway. This was the country to which black slaves dreamt to flee to, and some managed to. We were the end of the Underground Railway. Blacks came here escaping slavery, and we provided them a safe environment. Wasn't perfect in some cases, but they were safe here. Queen Victoria ruled that all black slaves escaping to Canada would be provided every right of a Canadian citizen. They would not be returned to their evil masters. They would not be returned to the United States. Now, here is something that surprises a lot of people because Queen Victoria, God bless her, said the same thing about Native peoples. There was a genocidal Indian war underway in the United States. The United States, for a period in its history, wanted to kill every native, every Aboriginal person, and they set out to do it. Terrible battles, Battle of Wounded Knee, etc., etc. Queen Victoria said, any natives who escape across the border to Canada will be provided protection of the Crown. And we did. Even Chief Sitting Bull, after the Battle of Little Bighorn, in which Custer and his men were wiped out, Chief Sitting Bull and his braves, several thousand, fled north into Canada and were provided free protection here by the Mounties for several years. Many of the native reserves are along our border. That's the reason. Many Indigenous people living in Canada today owe their lives to the fact that we protected their ancestors. Their ancestors fled to Canada to escape genocidal war in the United States. We protected them. We did not send them back. We provided. That's why many of the reserves are along the border, folks. So, we did some bad things, I guess, in the residential schools. Most reports seem to indicate, I'm not denying that. Some things happened that should not have happened. Happens in the history of every nation in the world. But our history is a proud one. I won't even have to go into our role in the various world wars, etc. But do you know that in addition to protecting blacks, the Underground Railway ending here, natives coming here, we protected them. Do you know that on a per capita basis, Canada brings into this country more new immigrants per capita than any other nation on earth? We should be proud of this. I'm sick and tired of them trying to denigrate Canada, move our celebrations away from Parliament Hill down to Le Breton Flats. Well, there's going to be a few events apparently on Parliament Hill. They say, well, there's control. I've been up. There's all kinds of room. There's no reason for them to move. I think it's just part of the Trudeau government, the leftists. Because it's not just Trudeau responsible. It's the leftists. They went, they want to browbeat us. They want to, make us all self-flagellate, whip ourselves. Put on the hair shirt. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I don't know about you. Okay, that's one of the things that I'm really concerned about. And one of the reasons for this is that we don't teach Canadian history in our schools anymore, aside apparently from our terrible role in the residential schools. This was in the province of Quebec, but my granddaughter for 4 years in high school, every year in history it was the same thing. Even their reading in English literature was Indigenous writers, as if nobody else existed in this country. It's time to stop. We made some mistakes. We've apologized all over the place. Let's get on with it. Okay? Let's move on. Not just for non-natives, but for natives as well. It's time to move on. Let's get fresh water onto the reserves. I agree with that. No problem with that. But let's get on with our lives. No more apologies, okay? No more apologies. But folks, what about you? Are you pessimistic about the direction we're taking? What bothers you the most? Do you think that in the end we will emerge stronger and prouder? Or do you believe that Trudeau and company and the leftists are inflicting some permanent damage? This apparently is one of the things that concerns some people, is that some of the damage being done may be permanent. I don't know. What's your feeling on this? John, any response to this point?
Absolutely. Let's hear from you. 613-413-2217. You can call or you can text on Facebook. It's The Lowell Green, Milkman Show, or Blast the Radio. It's twitch.tv/Blast the Radio, youtube.com/Blast the Radio. In fact, all of your show links, if it's easier for you, just go to lowellgreen.com. It'll take you right to Blast the Radio and our Lowell Green page. Mike is on Facebook. Lowell, he says, I'm surprised anybody would still vote Liberal. Corleen says, our loss of freedoms is the most concerning thing to her. And says the Ukraine is fighting for their survival and our leaders are acting like juveniles at the G7 table. Peter's on Facebook. More and more people are seeing the media and Trudeau for what they are and waking up. Good things are coming once we get rid of the Trudeau and crew. Melissa says, I'm worried about the forced political divide, left versus right, the radical divide, religious divide, language divide, and so on. What are they trying to achieve here, she asks.
Good point. Good. That's a concerning matter. There's no question about it. Go ahead, John.
Peter on Facebook says, we need to celebrate more, wave the flags like Americans do, teach civics and history in schools. In schools now, they teach a lot of successes liberals have, but negative towards conservative prime ministers. Margaret says, the past is the past. Learn from it and move on. Let's get to some of the comments from YouTube. They were up here. Where are you, Boo-Boo? I'm coming to you, buddy. I'm coming to you. You were in there earlier. Boo-Boo says, are those poll numbers any surprise? Not to me. It's been like this for a while, says Boo-Boo.
As I said, I'm surprised that the disaffection numbers aren't a little bit higher than that. But as I say, that's probably just the sort of the optimistic mood of most Canadians. We've been through hell before. You know, we fought 2 world wars, et cetera, et cetera. And we face another crisis now, and I guess people think that we'll come out of it. I'm worried that there may be some permanent damage. And I think one of the things that's the most disconcerting is this lack of knowledge about our country, this teaching that, trying to make us feel guilty about what the leftists are trying to do is persuade us that we're really a nasty people. And I'm not sure what the motivation here is. All the talk about racism. I mean, you talk to many leftists and they say, so there is systemic racism in this country. We're a racist nation. You've heard it all, folks. You've heard it all until the cows come home. Let me read you a vitriolic condemnation of the government. This is Joe Oliver writing in the Financial Post. It's a column. I'll just read one paragraph. It's a column entitled Lament for a Misgoverned Nation. Listen to this. Joe Oliver, Financial Post. As they prepare to celebrate their country's 155th birthday, Canadians are suffering at the hands of a divisive, incompetent government that has undermined prosperity, freedom, parliamentary responsibility, the independence of institutions, national unity, and our country's global standing. Unless the unsavory confidence and supply agreement with the NDP unravels, or the Liberal caucus rebels against an increasingly autocratic yet disengaged Prime Minister, we may be condemned to another 3 years before a despondent electorate can finally say enough. The evidence against the government is overwhelming, and he goes on to list it. It's if you Google Joe Oliver Financial Post, you'll see the whole thing. It's brilliantly written and outlines point by point what he's talking about. Lament for a misgoverned nation. John, back to you.
613-413-2217. Lowell, Linda is on the line to talk to you. Linda, go ahead. You're on live with Lowell Green.
Linda,
hi dear Lowell.
Yes,
I'm fine. I'm frustrated like you are. I just want to agree with you. I totally agree about this Indigenous crime that we had committed years ago, long before we were around. And I think we've got to move forward. Enough is enough.
Yep.
Everyone has apologized. We all make mistakes. Every generation does. But let's go forward. Let's make a difference in our own circle. Do the best we can, and let's move forward. I am concerned about our leadership convention too, because I don't like the bad mouthing of other conservatives amongst themselves. That's the wrong approach. We have to stick together, as I'm a conservative and I'm a proud conservative. And we need to get back to the basics. We need to.
I think. Can I say something? I think that
Yes.
I think that the strife between conservatives, I think it's being overplayed. I think this is the media hyping this. I mean, Pierre and Brown have taken a few shots at each other. So what? I mean, it's
Yeah,
election campaign. I think this
I
this
know.
division. I think it's vastly overblown. To be honest, let me ask you a question.
Hmm.
Okay, I think you pay close attention. We keep hearing. Maybe I shouldn't say this. We keep hearing about all the graves that have been discovered around residential
Hmm.
schools. Just let me ask the
Right.
question. Just let me ask the question.
Hmm.
And to your knowledge, have any of these graves been exhumed? Are these? I mean, it would seem to me that if there are bodies there, or remnants of
Hmm.
bodies, that they would have been exhumed and there would be services. I don't think anything of this nature has occurred. I'm very curious. Are there really
Hmm.
that many? Excuse me. Are there really that many bodies there, or I don't know. If there are those numbers of bodies, why
Hmm.
are they not being exhumed? I don't know. If anybody has any ideas on that, let me know. Thank you for your call. I appreciate it very
But
much.
in a comment to that,
Yes.
we don't know whether they had died from scarlet fever, whatever, the Spanish flu. They may have died. That was going on back then too. And
Absolutely.
maybe there were mass graves, like for even the rest of us, for all we know. We don't know that.
The only thing
You
is, I
know,
mean,
and
wait, they're exhuming, they are still exhuming bodies, etc., from the First
right,
World War in places of Europe, places in Europe. So
exactly.
I'm very curious on that. If anybody has any information, let me know. I have to move on. Thank you for your call. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you. Go ahead, John, please.
Yeah, first time call from Linda. We appreciate that
Yeah,
very,
good
very much,
for
Linda.
her.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you, Linda.
Let me see. Let's go to Melissa. There's a lack of confidence in our leadership, too. The government is supposed to lead us and better our country, and all they've done is guilt the nation and bankrupt us. Andre says this is more like an unconscious bias. Kerry says Trudeau said he would get fresh water to the reserves before he was elected. Still many reserves without fresh water.
Yeah,
And
let's deal. Don't forget now that the question is: are you pessimistic? Are you hopeful? Do you think we'll come out of this? Um, are there any thoughts? As there's a couple of things. Why I'm surprised nobody's comment. Why are they moving Canada Day celebrations after 50 years? For 50 years, Canada Day celebrations have been a joyous event. I've been there for many of the years. Okay, right there, a joyous event, bringing people of all colors and cultures all together, and a joyous event on Parliament Hill. And for the first time in 50 years, they've moved it down about a mile and a half to Le Breton Flats. I don't understand. And the other thing is, and you mentioned this, John, why is Wellington Street still closed off?
oh my God, Lowell. So I drove back from Peterborough, had to drop something off for Mark Sutcliffe in the west end of town. And so, of course, the natural thing would be to go up Wellington to drop my buddy off who lives at the end of Dalhousie. You can't get up Wellington. So the GPS now is rerouting me through Quebec. Not
I don't
exactly a
understand. I mean,
straight line. I mean, you want to talk about fighting for freedom. Well, I mean, I'm not free to drive down Wellington Street in front of the Senate, in front of the courthouse, in
yeah,
front of my Parliament buildings.
I realize.
I
I
don't,
mean,
I don't get it.
when everybody was upset because the convoy closed Wellington Street, so they moved the convoy out,
And
but
closed Wellington Street.
Wellington Street is still closed. This is a city decision, as far as I can gather.
Yep.
But I don't understand. I mean, I don't know what the hell's going on here. Go ahead, John.
And the reason for Canada Day being moved, the only explanation I've seen or read about is the fact that it's, there's construction on Parliament Hill and there's just not enough room on the front lawn to have the celebration
That's
safe.
nonsense. There's all kinds of room on the front lawn. It's a huge front lawn. Give me a break. Go ahead. In fact, there's more room on the front lawn even now at Parliament Hill than there is in LeBreton Flats. Go ahead.
Let's go to text 613-413-2217. Lowell, I think this poll is right on, but unfortunately, it sounds like how the federal vote went. The majority voted against the Liberals, but they won enough seats anyway. I look forward to the numbers breaking 60% disapproval of the Liberals. I have to be positive or I couldn't go on. The PCs will come in to help Canada, this person says.
Okay.
Let's go to Gina's comment on Facebook. As long as our government is run and chosen by their sex, color, religion, and ethnicity and know nothing about our country, nothing is going to change. New day, says Penny. New day? You've got to be kidding me. Say it ain't so. I'm so tired of trying to please everyone.
This apparently is in deference to Indigenous peoples. Well, I don't know. I mean, the Indigenous peoples are proud of this country as well. They're proud Canadians, for God's sake. And I think to denigrate Canada in a way is denigrating the people who live here, including the Indigenous people. You know what this is? This is virtue signaling. This is the leftists again signaling to us how virtuous they are. Oh, we care so much about Indigenous people. We're not going to call it Canada Day anymore because this is an insult to Indigenous. Well, did you ask the Indigenous people? Are they embarrassed? Are they ashamed to be called Canadian? I don't think so. Go ahead, John.
I mean, people are even booing the Canadian flag if they see it on your house or on your car now.
It's crazy.
Well, we're 21 minutes in. Let's get a word in here for Shields.
Absolutely. Shields. I still get calls from people saying, well, this is just a small dealership. But why do you keep talking about them? Well, yeah, the dealership on the main street in Pakenham, there is only one. Well, no, there's several streets in Pakenham. Just joking. But they have the point is they have a huge warehouse. The warehouse is filled with almost every appliance you could possibly want. All the latest model styles, price ranges, colors, size, everything. And it's all listed, of course, on their really good website. And don't forget as well, and people still say, do they have a little butcher shop? Yes, they do. You want to buy local? You can't get more local than this. Since 1947, not only in the same location, in the same town, but the same family running the business. Yes, they have a nice little butcher shop as well, and buy local, only local beef, pork, etc., etc. Just buy local. They mean within the immediate area. So it's really, really fresh. Shields.ca. Go ahead, John.
All right, the question that is on the screen for those watching and not listening is, what is your biggest concern about the direction Canada is going? To answer that, Barry chimes in by text at 613-413-2217. His concern is the way Trudeau thinks nothing of how his carbon tax is affecting the population while we undergo high inflation, and he acts like there's no problem for him to be concerned about at all. Let's go to Peter. Buy local anytime. Best personal service. People that care. There you go. We should be celebrating at Parliament Hill, says Kerry, hoping we have a chance to turn it around after the next election. Back to YouTube. As long as Trudeau's in power, we will never leave the rut that we are currently in. Boot his ass out ASAP. Get PRP and the Conservatives in yesterday. Another comment here. Be like the White House in the USA. They made it walking only. City decision forced by Trudeau. If it's crap, Trudeau had something to do with it. Look deeper, John. You'll find a Trudeau to blame for downtown traffic, closing all those roads off. Well, Friday's weather had 30 degrees and 80% chance of rain for Canada Day. Thanks, Chrissy. We got the weather forecast for Canada Day. Kelly says the decision to move Canada Day is because of the convoy. The Liberals are still punishing people for standing up for their rights. Ever since Trudeau came into power, Canada Day has not been the same. Prior to COVID and the convoy, the number of people allowed on the Hill was limited. Trudeau continues to attempt to ruin any pride in Canada. That is my opinion.
Well, that's interesting. I don't know if Trudeau is playing a role in this or not. John, what's your view on this? Is this the closing of Wellington Street, the moving of Canada Day celebration? Do you think this is Trudeau just trying to punish the convoy?
I don't think so.
Why is Wellington Street still closed? I don't understand. This is a main
Because
artery in
because
this
they're
city.
because they're terrified of the security concern that if they open it back up, these people will creep back in and we'll be dealing with the same old thing
Oh,
again.
nonsense.
That-
I mean,
That's what it is.
craziness.
It's they don't have the balls to deal with it should it happen. And here it comes for July 1st. What they're protesting now, I don't know.
Well, there'll be some people. I mean, there's always protests.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what Parliament Hill is. That's what Parliament Hill is there for. That's
right.
Not what it's there for, but it's what we have a right to do at Parliament Hill. I don't know. Peter says, be like the White House in the USA. No, he said that already. Let's go to Cheryl. Totally agree with you, Lowell. There is so much Canadian history that we can be proud of. Mike is on Facebook. Without Canada's help, we would probably have lost the wars. Scott says, did you all hear Evan Solomon's question period yesterday? A Canadian general stated as of late June 2022, the world has never been closer to a nuclear war. Linda says, our biggest concern is...
Hold on.
Sure.
What's that got to do with the price of corn? I mean, so somebody close to it, they've been... Can I tell you something? I survived the Cold War. Not far from where I am now is the Diefenbunker, this huge underground protection area that John Diefenbaker was supposed to go in. I mean, this business, it's like the evangelists. So every year it's, we're near the end time. We're not near the end time. Go ahead, please, John.
I love this on YouTube. What the hell happened to Canada Day? Why is this all of a sudden an issue? Can we still light fireworks off on May 2 for? What about Santa Claus?
And the Tooth Fairy is gone too.
That's fun.
I have to tell you a little story. It's been a tough day. My nephew, who now plays professional football, by the way.
Oh.
When he was just a little boy, he comes to his mother one day, and he's been, what he shouldn't do, he's been rifling around in her drawer, and he pulls out a little package that's got 3 or 4 of his teeth. So he says to his mother, "These are my teeth, aren't they?" She said, "Yes, they are." So he says, "So I suppose you're telling me there's no Tooth Fairy. The next thing you're going to tell me is there's no Santa Claus?" Oh, poor old Dylan. Dylan is playing football. Well, he's not professional, but he's playing at university and down in Mississippi right now. He is the only white guy on the entire team, and they love him. Go ahead.
Good for him, though. That's great.
Yeah,
Think we'll see him in the CFL someday, or maybe the NFL?
Yes. Saskatchewan is after him already. Yeah.
Great spot.
Yeah.
All right, Bill, over to you on Facebook. Trudeau truly believes in the New World Order. He has drank the Kool-Aid and wants to make Canada a non-nation state. Melissa on Facebook also.
Well, you know what? There's, I think there's a little grain of truth in that. I don't quite know what you mean by a non-nation state, but I think that he has. I'm not sure if he has guilt about Canada. I'm just not sure what goes on, but he's obviously trying to create something here that we are not. That's been evidence, I think, since day one. Go ahead, John.
All right, I was about to read what Melissa had to say. Here we go. I'm worried about what the price of fuel is going to do to us in the long term. I called my propane provider yesterday, off-peak season, and the current rate is 97 cents per liter. This time last year, we filled up for 62 cents per liter. They teach mistakes, says Kellyanne. They teach only mistakes we made as a nation in our schools and erase it by destroying statues or changing the names of schools or streets. You cannot erase history.
Now they're trying to make us feel embarrassed about our first prime minister. Taking down his statues. They've changed the name of Ryerson University. It just goes on and on and on. All intended to make us feel guilty about our own country and about our own history. And in that goes without saying, feel guilty about our ancestors. Well, you know what? I say to the leftists, I don't feel guilty about my ancestors. They helped to build this country, and they went through hell to do it. And God damn it, they did it. Go ahead, John.
It's very Bart Simpson, isn't it? I didn't do it. You don't see anything. There's no evidence here. Peter says, rumor has it Convoy 2.0 might come back sometime before the end of summer.
Rumor. It's not coming back. Go ahead.
Carl on Facebook. My biggest concern is that Trudeau and his minions are trying to turn Canada into a leftist European country.
Well, there's some, I think there's some truth in that. We'll all ride bicycles. Go ahead.
I'm close to the same age as you are, says Gina. I've never learned any Canadian history in school. Interesting. Joshua says, I think he wants to change Canada's image much like his father did. The Canada of pre and post Trudeau is very different. History repeating itself. Linda, our biggest concern is we do not have a democracy anymore, becoming more and more communistic. Margaret, the past is the past. Learn from it. Let's move on. I believe I read that already. Hazel agrees with you 100%. And Anne says, my biggest fear is that the socialists are taking us so far left that we will have no history or identity left.
Well, that is a concern. There's no question about it. Go ahead, John.
Lowell, that's it for comments on the show.
All right. Well, we're right out of time. Thank you all, folks. Some very good comments, some very thoughtful comments here. And if anybody has any information about, have any bodies actually ever been exhumed at the residential school locations? I'm trying to do some research on
That's
this.
Interesting, Lowell.
It's very puzzling to me. I could be wrong. They may have, but it would seem to me that if they did, there would have been fairly heavy media coverage, and I've seen none.
Agreed.
Are they really bodies there? Are there really that many bodies? I don't know. And I'm not sure if any of us really know yet. Thank you all. Back again tomorrow.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green Podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green Podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.